just move a whole lot further away from the door, then I won't have to interrupt to ask you again. And I know this a little inconvenient, but that's the way it needs to be. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell? Present. Ms. Hill? Present. Mr. Dwyer?
Present.
Mr. Batson?
Present.
Mr. Anderson?
Present. Next, we will have prayer and pledge, please.
Please stand for a prayer. Father, we come together tonight as a community that cares about our neighbors and our city. Please keep your hands on this meeting and these people and allow us the guidance tonight to do what is right and just. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, tonight we have citizens' comments. This time, since this is not a standard type of meeting, the citizens that may talk are unlimited. Your time is unlimited, but also be aware.
Just for a point of order, Mr. Anderson, for citizens' comments, it is limited to the first 5 people to sign up for 3 minutes each. For the public hearing, it will be
All right.
Unlimited.
I kind of got ahead of ourselves. All right, for the citizens' comment, do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, sir, we do. The first is Stuart Collier Trust.
Stuart Lawyers Trust.
Thank you for your time. I'll be brief. So my name is Stuart Collier. I own 101 acres directly west of the proposed project. I'm from Memphis, and I own the largest independently owned insurance broker in Tennessee. I own a second home at the Golf Club of Tennessee, and my plan was to build a new home on the land that I bought in Fairview. I thought that this would be the perfect place to enjoy some peace and quiet when I retire. Quickly, some of the highlights in the listing said, discover a serene oasis in Williamson County, heavy timber for ultimate privacy, picturesque rolling hills, multiple prime building sites along large level ridge lines. The southern boundary is beautifully defined by the Tally Branch, which feeds into the Wilson Creek and flows to the South Harpeth River. This versatile land offers endless possibilities for residential estate or creating your private retreat in a prime location. Well, I'm new to this area, and most of you don't know me. I'm married with 4 children. 2 boys work with me at Collier Insurance. My daughter lives here in Nashville. The 2 boys are the 4th generation of our business. My other son serves as an officer in the United States Navy in intelligence in Honolulu. The most important part of my life is my Christian faith. My dad served in Cairo's prison ministry for 10 years, and after his death, I began serving in the same ministry at West Tennessee State Penitentiary. I've been led to serve there for 15 years. And I've also started a Christian-centered mentorship program for juveniles referred from juvenile court. And this has been an 8-year journey. Memphis has major crime problems, and I will always keep a home there. But I've been led to improve those problems with faith, love, and service. I believe that violence and hate lead to endless retribution. I don't know much about Fairview or the people that live here, but I hope that I'll get to know most of you and become a good neighbor in this community. When I bought my property here, I thought this could be the next Franklin. I still think it could. If this proposed development is approved, my land will not be useful for any residential building. My property will be worthless as a peaceful, serene oasis. I am totally opposed to this development, and my attorney, Doug Berry, if he is allowed, will address some of the negative ramifications to my property. Thank you very much for your time, and please, please do not approve this development. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker, please.
Dr. Charles King or Chris King.
They're only letting us have 5 speakers. No? No? What's the rule? I couldn't understand.
All right, we are, citizens' comments come first. You have limited to 5 citizens for 3 minutes. After that, we come back to an open forum for the speakers.
Okay. I will make my comments, and then later you can. My name is Chris King. I live 7925 Fernvale Road. My family has owned property in Fernvale community since 1932. I'm a registered professional engineer and have taught engineering at 7 different colleges and universities, including the United States Military Academy at West Point. So I look at this from an engineer standpoint. The first thing I did is looked at the ordinance that applies, which is the Williamson County ordinance that describes extensive rural retreats. The very basis of the ordinance for land use in Williamson County includes ensuring land resources are allocated to accommodate and enhance the rural character while protecting and enhancing natural and historic resources. That's the very basis of what we say we're trying to do for the whole county, and it includes all the cities. Extensive rural retreats are one of those options that are in there, and I think it's pretty much self-described. It's to go and enjoy the rural environment that we're all here, moved here for, or enjoy coming back to. Rural retreats allow residential uses, recreational uses, subordinate to the standards that are set. Swimming pools, related facilities, tennis courts, sports courts, picnic areas, golf courses and related facilities, ball fields, children's play equipment, and other recreational facilities. Those are the kinds of things that are supposed to go into an extensive rural retreat. If you just think about it, what is being proposed does not fit into that standard. It does not achieve what rural retreats were put in as one of the options for zoning. The problems I see as an engineer for this, availability of water that's required, how we're doing the sewage treatment that is required, a traffic impact analysis is required to do an extensive rural retreat. I would point out that within a mile, the road goes from being a Old Harding Road, Williamson County, to Old Harding Road, Davidson County. So that means a coordination with Davidson County would be required. The big problem I saw that's immediate is the amount of stormwater that's going to be produced. I did a calculation of how much excess runoff will be caused in our normal design standard, which is a 10-year flood, which is for our 24-hour period, 10-year flood, which is 5.8 inches of water in a 24-hour period. By paving just the road, it's going to produce an extra 1.1 million gallons of water that has to run off, and it all runs onto these people's property. It goes down into the South Harpeth River, so we've got a contamination concern for the South Harpeth, and we've got a flood control issue for the people that live downstream of this. It also has sound restrictions.
I do not want to stop you from telling your side of the story, but you're limited to 3 minutes in this segment.
Okay, I will quit, though. The last thing I would say is there are sound restrictions for these kinds of events, and this will not pass those. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. All right, excuse me.
Next is Edith Kauser.
Thank you. My name is Edith Kauser. I want to make a point that you all understand. A lot of us lived in Fairview for a long time, but the destruction of property that they want to do, it's not feasible to me and to lots of others. What they're doing, what they're requesting, the request is for what they want to do. The property is on the other side of me, but then they want to do the emergency entrance on my road. And it starts with Wallace Road, then goes to Telly Hollow. And the road stops at my home. And it says it's just an easement. It's not a regular road. It starts at my home, going through Green Springs, all the way through. And they want to do this as 3 miles for emergency. But that is not the right thing to choose because it's just an easement, it's not a road. So what they're going to do? Take it and make a road out of it? That's another question nobody has answered. Obviously, a lot of understanding what's going to be done. Where my house is built is so close to that easement of the road, and it goes down the hollow of my property, and it's just an easement. It's not a road. So there is a lot of questions. Who will take care of this in a reasonable way? Are we having any answers for this? Or just let the rich people take over what they want to do with it? I'm not rich. No. I just own a small farm, but they cut it in half. Would that be feasible for me? Cut it in half? No. And that's why I decided I want to speak and get the understanding from all the people that in here that listen what I have to say. I'm old, yeah. I don't know how many years I'm going to be here. But as long as I be here, I don't want nobody throw me around and take advantage of me because I've been in Fairview 52 years next month. And I've been a quiet neighbor, try to be nice to my neighbors, but it does not work. Some people just have their own ideals. What I want, how I want it, how quick I want it. How many people are going to hold back and say, well, let him run over me? Is that correct? I don't think so. I know you just give me 3 minutes to talk, so I just want y'all to understand. My road goes to my home. After this, it stops, and it's just an easement where my property starts. It's not a road. So I would like to have the consideration taken because if they're going to dozer a road for emergency, I won't have the room to park there in front of my garage and turn around and get out. Thank you very much. Y'all have a good night.
Dory was stuck in the bad traffic. She's just arrived, so I'm going to give her my spot so she could speak next. I'm going to go get
Hey, good evening. I'm Dory Bowles, and I'm the founder and president of the Harpeth Conservancy. And like many of you, I've been stuck in several accidents, and I apologize for being late. I wanted to, first of all, thank you for all your hard work. This is a complicated proposal. And we looked at it from the standpoint of water quality, stormwater, and flood management. Sort of very concerned about the nature of the property. Has a lot of terrain. You have a number of the headwater streams that go to the South Harpeth. The South Harpeth is one of the most pristine river systems in Middle Tennessee. And the nature of the property is such that, let me say it this way, the current Fairview City Code doesn't have the same level of requirements for stormwater management that you see for bigger cities, because the city doesn't have to follow some of the state standards quite yet. But the city is actually adopting some new ones pretty soon with the latest draft. They still don't quite capture some of the key things that are needed for this property if it were to develop the way they're envisioning it. And one of the big things is being able to handle oils and things like that that come off these roads, and the runoff from the road and from the car park and everything else. I sent something to Ethan today. It was late. I'm welcome. I can certainly provide it to you. If you feel that it's possible that this might fit underneath the conditional use, you certainly have the authority under your code to attach as many special conditions as you think is necessary. And one of the key ones would be all the requirements for floodplain management, stormwater, and those things are like capturing the different rainfall events so you don't cause flooding and let it out slowly, and also having stream buffers. Right now, those things aren't required in your code, but you can add those if you feel this might be a way. I just would strongly urge you to think about this seriously, because it's not what you would normally think of for a private nonprofit club, lodge, hall, recreation center. It's very unusual to have this racetrack in the woods. And so we have runoff issues to deal with and water quality issues to deal with. I appreciate your time.
This is 3-minute speech. I
Thank
think
you.
that's the fifth person. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, that was number 4. We have one more. It's
One more, okay.
Stephen Lister.
Please hold these comments to 3 minutes if you can.
My name is Stephen Lester. I'm a 5th generation of my family to live on the land connected to 5185 Old Harding. My great-grandfather was born in the house at 5145 Old Harding in 1888, and that's the oldest record we have written about our family there. Nearly 140 years later, we're still there. My father, Emery Lester, who's here tonight, was born in that same historic house. In 1976, he built our family home just down the way where he and my mother raised me and my 3 older brothers. That home quickly became more than just a house. It was a safe haven, a place where countless kids in our community found refuge. My mother used to laugh and say that she had way more than 4 kids because so many of my friends and my brother's friends practically lived at our house. Parents trusted us because it was our place far away from the noise, traffic, and the dangers of town life. We were free to be kids, loud, adventurous, and safe, while my parents kept watch to make sure we were steered clear of alcohol, drugs, and trouble. For us, growing up here was like going to summer camp every weekend. And because of that deep connection, in 2016, my wife and I chose to build our house less than a quarter mile from where I grew up on the same plot of land. When my contractor told me some of my design choices might make it difficult to resell one day, I told him, I don't really care. I'm going to die in this house. Because this land is not just property, it's heritage, sanctuary, and home for me. Here we have camped, hunted, fished, hiked, and foraged along its creeks and riverbanks. This land has given us peace, beauty, and a bond with nature that no subdivision or resort could ever replace. I knew growth would come to this area, but not like this. A high-end resort will bring noise, traffic, and pollution, and it will destroy the quiet character of this land. And even 500 cookie-cutter houses would erase not only the beauty, but the history and sanctuary that generations of families like mine have cherished for more than a century. This community does not deserve reckless development. This community deserves thoughtful, respectful growth. Growth that respects our heritage, our peace, and our quality of life. I stand here tonight to urge you, reject this proposal, protect this land, and preserve what makes this community worth calling home.
Okay, with that, we open it up. You want to start the agenda? Okay, with that, we've had our citizens' comments. So now we're going to go on to open agenda. We'll approve minutes, but is there any minutes that we want to approve?
Item 5, approval of agenda.
Okay. Say again.
Move to item 5, approval of agenda.
Okay, that's what I said. Or if you're not hearing me, okay. We want to approve the agenda.
We need one of you to make a
Motion
motion
to
to approve
approve.
the agenda. Good.
Second.
It needs to be seconded? All right.
Second. I have a question on the agenda, maybe for Mr. Carter. If we move to number 6A from the regular meeting in 2024, there's, as I believe, only 2 members currently serving on this appeals board that are here, that were on that meeting. And the rest of us would normally abstain from that. Is that true? And how would we pass the approval of those minutes?
You don't have to abstain from approving the minutes just
I don't
because
have
you
to.
were not, no.
Okay.
You just need to review the minutes, and if they appear accurate, then you're entitled to vote on them as a member of this commission.
Well, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to approve the agenda. All in favor?
We'll call the roll. Mr. Batson?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Dwyer? Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Hill? Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Okay, with that, that's approved. The next will be approve the minutes. And with the minutes, we've got a regular meeting, September the 10th. That's tonight. And we have.
These are the minutes from the last BOZA meeting that we had.
Right. Okay. So we're starting with new business, correct?
We'll need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
And is there any discussion about the minutes? Okay, you can, Mr. Anderson, you can ask that the roll be called.
Brett, all right, the roll be calls, please.
Mr. Batson?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Hill? Mr. Dwyer? Mr. Anderson?
Aye. All right, I think we're ready for new business. Okay, with new business, the first is election of the chairperson. And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
It would be a
nominate-
motion, pardon me, it'd be a motion to nominate, open nominations. So it sounds like you were going to nominate
Yes, sir.
somebody.
I motion to nominate Mike Anderson as chairperson.
Second that motion.
Any other nominations?
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Nomination ceased. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer? Mr. Batson?
Aye.
Ms. Hill? Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is the vice chairman, chairperson. Do I have any nominations? Anyone make a motion?
I'll nominate Mr. Dwyer.
Second.
Any other nominations? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Batson?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Hill? Mr. Dwyer?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Thank you all again. All right, the applicant's presentation is next on the agenda. Is the applicant here? Please give him time to state his name, reason for being here, what he's trying to propose, and give him the chance and opportunity to speak.
Great.
And before I say that again, don't forget to be conscious of the fire escape, emergency exits. It looks like we're doing a good job with that. Thank you.
Bree and Keith, if you could, please put click share on the screen.
All right. So my name is Brian Wright. I'm here to represent the applicant. I just want to kind of give you a bit of a overview of the project, so you can understand what it is you're being asked to vote on tonight. And sorry, can you hear me? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So first of all, just wanted to say too that we work on all kinds of projects all around the country. I'm down over in Franklin, so this is nice to be able to just drive over here. But for me, just being involved in the zoning ordinance that you guys are working on, hearing about from the community, kind of what the community preferences are. One of the reasons why we decided to get involved in this was that the use on the property was intended to be so small scale, and you'll see that here. So just kind of starting off with that overview. You hit, oh, there we go. I may have hit it too many times. There we go. Okay. So this is the property here. It's 577 acres. And it's, in a great location. We've been looking at it and trying to understand what are the rules and ramifications, what does the zoning ordinance currently say? So looking at the zoning ordinance right now, we've got R20 zoning out there, which is 1 and 2 family residential properties that it's currently allowed for. And then in our study, we actually came across a plan that was approved previously. You may not have seen before, but it's 500 single-family homes, PUD, that was approved under this R20 as well, which, pretty much, there's a golf course as well, so I guess there was some green left. But to me, this seemed like a lot, and it seemed like not protecting the rural character. And so that's kind of what sort of set us off in the direction of doing something much less intense on the property. There we go. All right, so there is the conditional use permit, which is what the process we're here for tonight, which says that you can do these single-family homes, but there are also these other things that you can ask for. One of them is this private nonprofit club, lodge, meeting hall, and recreation center. And so different than the county's definition of in their ordinance of what rural retreat is, we're using the conditional use that's allowed in the current zoning ordinance. So the idea is we started with the property, because as you've heard tonight, it's a beautiful piece of property, very unique. There's lots of topography there. There's valleys and ridges and hydrology of various types. And so we actually started with the topography sort of dictating what the design would ultimately be. The idea was to really, just sort of the planning principles that went into it was a focus on conservation, a focus on working with the landscape. That's part of the intent of this rural retreat. So the idea would be to, this is shown the plan here, to basically not disturb any of the land except for this area here, where you would have the lodging, and then this area here, and then you see the driving course that's shown here. The idea and intent of this is for it to be a unique driving experience so that it's actually embedded within the trees rather than taking them all down, which is what would have happened, I suppose, with the prior 500-unit subdivision that was approved. So what you can see here is this is an open space diagram. So everything that's black is where development would occur. Everything that's green is not touched. So we have more than 94% of open space left on the land, which is unheard of, which is, besides, some of the discussion we've heard so far, what people in most cases would say, wow, a development that's looking to take all of this land and only develop on like 6% of it is remarkable. So trying to understand, what this could look like. We have kind of broken the plan into different quadrants. So this is on the Old Harding Road entrance area. So the idea would be to have an agricultural area here where, produce would be grown that would be utilized on site and served in restaurant on site, as well as could be, available to the community. And then you also see walking and hiking trails just kind of throughout here. Where we are showing these gaps in the trees doesn't mean the trees are being cut down. We just opened it up so you could see where the dotted line was. Then moving up to the central portion of the property, that's where the area that's being referred to as the compound is shown. There's the small cottages here, and they're all clustered together in this sort of pedestrian environment. Clubhouse where people would go and have a meal, and then additional agriculture areas here as well. And there's an existing barn on the site where we were looking at putting the area for car storage, which we call the car barn as well. Oh, sorry, I just skipped two important things that people are, actually they're on the next slide too. There's also shown a sporting clay range and a rifle range. And so in that case, what we'd have to do is, follow any of the standards and regulations that would govern such a facility as that if it's allowed. And that's one of the things that's interesting about this process is we're not asking to be able to be approved to do all of these things right this minute. We're asking to allow for this rural retreat to be approved as a conditional use. And then at the next stage, which would be site plan approval, then we go through and have to show that we've met all the requirements for all of these things, because the other element of this area is the driving course, the 3-mile driving course here. And so, as was mentioned before, there's currently sound standards, regulations that we would have to meet. And if we can't meet them, you can't do a driving course. So there's several different ways that can be accomplished, but we have to prove it as we go into the next stage that that's a suitable thing. We also heard about the emergency access point up here to the north. That was something that, as we talked to the city, that was requested. And actually showing a potential fire station location. And the reason why it's advantageous, it's not an emergency access for us, it's emergency access to get from the north all the way down to 96 in a faster way. So actually the fire truck or whatever emergency vehicle would then get on the track and come down. And so we have that little connection point here from side to side that makes it a quicker way to get down and out. So that was something that we easily could incorporate into the plan per the request there. So this is a zoom in of the area that's the compound. Each of these different colors represents a different type of cottage. Most of these are single cottages that are intended for just a person or two to be in there. We have a building in the center here. It's sort of a central gathering space or library. This is, like I said, all pedestrian intended, but we've set it up so that if an emergency service vehicle does have to come in here, they have proper circulation routes to get in and out. But we've even worked around existing trees that we can see. That's what you're seeing here. And so, and this happens, this area, if this weren't shown on top of the plan, is pretty much clear, except for a few trees that are here and there. And that's why we picked that site, because we wouldn't have to cut down trees. And we have proximity to this area here where there was a lake. The dam broke. And so, looking into regulations as to whether or not we can bring that back or not. But knowing that it is an environmentally sensitive area, beautiful from our perspective, we actually put a buffer on ourselves. You heard about the buffering that you guys don't require currently. We self-impose that upon ourselves, which is why we're set back from the water here as well. And we stayed out of the steep slope areas. So that's kind of the sort of working with the landscape. And then also the actual design of the cottages and the buildings on site would be intended to work with natural stone. There's stone all over the site along this beautiful creek. You can see the creek bed is kind of stepping down with stones. And so the idea would be to pick up those natural materials that you would have seen in the region and mix that in with the native and local landscape. So that's kind of the overall design intent there. Here's a couple of renderings. So this is a view actually taken from this spot with the sort of the creek behind you here. You can see the edge of the creek there, looking into the center. This is kind of the civic gathering space. And then here you see these cottages, the rental cottages that are there as well. And then this is a view kind of down in the streetscape, looking down into the, I say street, it's a pedestrian way, looking down to the lodge building in the distance there, and keeping that view off into the distance for to the mountains and hills in the distance. So it's quite a unique concept, but I think probably that this is the most controversial part of it, and trying to understand how does this road course work engineering wise. I know I saw on one of the newscasts a video of a sort of a fly through of the course, and it looked like all the trees were cut down, but that's just simply to show where the track goes. So like I said, the intent is to save the trees, to work around them, and to engineer it so that it works with the topography. And we also pick these locations because there's some sound buffering from the natural topography as well. But we've got to do what we've got to do when it comes to the sound regulations and make sure that we're not exceeding what's currently allowed. We understand that, and it would be an important part of what we're doing in this project, because otherwise that wouldn't be fair to the community, as we've heard tonight. So here's the applicant here to say a couple words.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Walker Lund. This is my project. Before I start, I brought my daughter with me tonight, and I have a point that I want to make and some information about myself that I want to share. So, Karina, at the end of Beauty and the Beast, who attacks who in their home? That's right. And why did they make this attack? Good. And was what Gaston told them true? No. And did any of the villagers stop to think for themselves before racing towards the castle with their torches and pitchforks? No. And did Gaston have something to gain personally by leading this attack? He did. I have been contacted by neighbors, residents, press, people who don't live here, at work, at home, on my personal phone. One of your neighbors called me. Yes.
Your voice
I'm
back
getting-
and
I'm-
forth is overwhelming and then not heard. So
Thank you.
you need to kind of be where we can understand each word.
Thank you very much. One of your neighbors called me to warn me that you all know where I live. Now, so it seems that the villagers have come out waving their pitchforks and their torches and wearing red because of fears that are unfounded, planted by people with personal interests who have spread lies about what we have planned and pushed a petition based on those lies. I don't know if you've been presented with said petition, but I would hope that the officials here recognize and discount this petition appropriately. Now, a few did stop to think for themselves, and they didn't fall for the fear-based manipulation, and they reached out to me and spoke to me. And in the end, they wished us success. And I'd like to tell you why. Because we all want the same thing. We are all here, many of us wearing red, to save Fernvale. And I'm going to prove it to you. Not yet. In high school, I received an Eagle Scout. Because of my love for the outdoors, I pursued a degree in tourism and hospitality at Cornell University so that I could use the power of tourism as a force for conservation. At Cornell University, I studied books like Ecotourism and Sustainable Development by Martha Honey, who I have met with. Upstream and downstream, I have a duffel bag full of these. Some of them are books that my wife wrote, and this is the first sustainability report for a hotel ever written, and I wrote it for the Willard Intercontinental in Washington, D.C. As an undergraduate, I was hired by the World Bank to improve the environmental performance of their offices. I was hired by Conservation International to lead a global hospitality program. I have been consulted by the World Resources Institute on the greenhouse gas accounting protocol. I spent the first 20 years of my career pioneering food waste composting in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and Atlanta. It is because of my efforts that brands that we all know, Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, Sodexo, Starbucks, Chipotle, I can go on, compost their food waste. I am responsible for developing an industry that composts hundreds of thousands of tons of food waste. I use market forces to create lasting environmental impact that isn't reliant on donors or the goodwill of others. Environmental sustainability is who I am. It is what I do to my core. And I invite anyone who has done as much for the environment or dedicated more of their life or their life force to the environment to raise their hand now, because that is a hand I would like to shake. Now, Fernvale has a problem. There is a 577-acre site for sale that can be developed, and you won't be able to stop it. It might be hundreds of homes, it might be a golf course. You might get lucky and have a very wealthy person come in and use this as their own single-family home. I wouldn't bet on it. I believe that our proposal is the most realistic, practical, and lasting way to achieve minimum impact here. I believe that our proposal does a better job of preserving the rural character of the valley and of preserving this site than any other option. Now, I understand there are concerns. There are concerns about the tax impact, visual impact, traffic impact, sound impact, runoff, and others. I'm going to very quickly address these. There are articles in Fox 5 and Fox 17 about tax impact. Our federal tax exemption does not alleviate us from state and local taxes. We will be paying property taxes. Your tax base will rise less than if you have 500 homes there with families and children who need to go to school that you're going to have to pay for. So your tax burden is better off with us here. From a visual impact standpoint, I think that my colleagues have done an excellent job explaining that you will not see this property. Everything is hidden behind hills and trees. Even the adjacent properties cannot see this. At night, we're designing for dark sky compliant lighting, no uplighting, primarily natural lighting from fires and oil lamps, so that our observatories can be effective and see the night sky. From a traffic impact, I've prepared some traffic impact studies. I didn't bring enough for everyone, but we're forecasting, and I'll pass them out. They're not very thorough. It's just very kind of ballpark stuff, but for you to look at. We're forecasting between 27 and 58 visits per day, which includes members and operating staff, vendors and employees. The traffic is a drop in the bucket for the existing traffic on the road, and a fraction of what you would be facing if this were developed as homes. Sound impact. Okay, baby. The city zoning requires the sound from our property to be at 55 decibels. That's my read of it. At your property line. So we're going to do a little experiment. I have a decibel reader on here. If anyone has one of their own, crack it open. And I'd like a volunteer. If you look up what 55 decibels is online, you will get results like the vibration of a toothbrush and the hum of a refrigerator. It is incredibly quiet. If we do not perform on a sound basis, we can't operate. And equally importantly, we have a vested interest in managing the sound because the members of our property, thank you, sir. The members of our property are also coming for a very peaceful experience. Someone made a comment in one of the articles that they don't want Fairview to become a rich person's playground. If you'd like to preserve this piece of property, you have two choices. You can have a lot of people paying a little bit of money and all of the traffic that comes along with that, or you can have just a few people paying a lot of money. And if anyone sees another way, I'd be happy to hear it, but this property is expensive. Now, some people have reached out and they don't like our branding or our marketing. Our brand pokes fun at ostentatious brands, and we don't like to take ourselves too seriously. Our brand is a tip of the hat to incredible individuals that we work with on excursions that we do with our community. We have a community who likes to get out and explore the outdoors, and this is just, it's really all about appreciating the outdoors and valuing it. And we think that's pretty great. So I want to thank you all for your time. And in summary, I believe that you're facing four options with this decision. You can wait for another developer to come, and you'll get what you get, so don't get upset. You can reject our proposal and hope and pray that no one ever develops this site. Good luck. You can together buy this land for yourself and put it into conservation, or you can support our vision, a project that you won't see, you won't hear, and you will barely know is there. So let me ask you, does anyone here have a better strategy for preserving this piece of private property? Go away. Thank you for your time.
Oh, okay, now, they've made their presentation. Now it's time for the citizens to speak. Remember, politeness works and goes a long ways for each and every person here. And if you get out here and filibuster, then the rest of your neighbors and citizens will not have the opportunity to say what they choose. So this project, this is the first phase of introducing. There are other times people can speak, so please be polite, respect the people that are trying to speak and the ones that wish to speak next, and also respect everybody and your quality of your words. It's important that people be respectful. I've said that too many times, but I mean that.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing our comments tonight.
We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, if you could have each speaker state their name and address.
Thanks. My name is Caleb Lee. My address is 100 Claiborne Court in Franklin. The following letter, which I'm about to read, was written by my father, Bill Lee, who wished he could be here tonight. Unfortunately, he was unable to. He had a conflict, but cares deeply about this matter. And the following are his comments on it. I respectfully write to strongly oppose the conditional use request for 5185 Old Harding Road. Not only is the proposed use contrary to local zoning, it would also compromise the legacy values that many in this community hold dear. 5 generations of my family have lived, farmed, attended our schools and our churches, and have been a part of this beautiful, quiet, and peaceful community. We have treasured the bonds we have made with our neighbors, many of them multi-generational families, who have helped create this community generations ago, and who themselves have made Fairview and Fernvale their home. Many of these family properties sit adjacent to the property proposed for development. The preferences of local residents are recognized in our zoning ordinances. which reflect this community's chosen balance between landowner rights and common interests. In Tennessee, the purpose of local zoning restrictions is to hold that balance between property rights and community preferences in a way that serves the common good. The current zoning restrictions are clear. The property is zoned for residential use. The proposed use of the property is not residential. It includes commercial activities like an amphitheater, car driving course, sporting clay course, rifle range, and guest lodges. These commercial uses do not satisfy the zoning regulations, and these activities will result in increased traffic, noise, and environmental concerns that are inconsistent with the rural residential community. Moreover, the applicant's relationship to the zoning process raises serious ethical concerns. Our community's values and rules regarding land use are clearly reflected in the zoning code. It is equally clear that the proposed uses of the property do not comply with the zoning requirements. Accordingly, the conditional use request should be denied. Respectfully, Bill Lee.
Hello, I'm Jim Murphy. My address is 1221 Broadway, Nashville, Tennessee. I represent the owner of the property immediately to the south of this proposed project. I've submitted a letter on behalf of my client, which I would ask to be included in the record. I'm not going to go through all the long arguments I made in the record. I'm just going to hit some high points. And I would definitely suggest that if you have questions about while you're here or what you're supposed to consider, that you consult with your attorney who is very knowledgeable in this area of the law. But you're here tonight to review an application for a conditional use permit. You're not here to evaluate whether this project is better than some other potential project that may or may not be developed on this property. You lack the power to make that evaluation. Your job tonight is to determine whether or not this application meets the requirements in the zoning ordinance. That's the only criteria you're supposed to look at. And as we explained in as I explained in our letter, this project does not meet the requirements in the zoning ordinance. The applicant has failed to submit a site plan as required by the zoning ordinance. The applicant's statement is, oh, all of those things will be worked out later. Well, unfortunately for you, the zoning ordinance requires you to consider the site plan so that you can make a determination that this site plan meets all the requirements of the zoning ordinance, because that's one of the requirements in the ordinance to approve a conditional use, that the applicant demonstrates that it's met all the requirements of the zoning code. So we'll submit a traffic study later, or we'll submit a site plan later. All those things don't work because you have to make the determination that it meets all the requirements. One of the most important things that, excuse me, pull it down. One of the things that the zoning ordinance requires is that you make a determination that this project will not adversely affect the safety and convenience of vehicular or pedestrian circulation. Well, the applicant has submitted no traffic study. The comments by a layperson are not evidence on which you can rely on traffic information. In order to rely on information about traffic, you have to have a licensed engineer submit a traffic study. And the case law, I mean, you can consult with your attorney, he's familiar with this. The case law is clear that comments by laypersons are not evidence that you can rely on regarding traffic. The zoning ordinance also requires that the city engineer advise you that the project will not decrease the traffic flow below a level of service D. Well, The city engineer can't make that recommendation or advisement to you because there's not been a traffic study that's been presented. So without those things, this applicant fails to meet the requirements of the zoning code. The other problem, and the most significant problem with this application, is the applicant is combining multiple types of uses on the property. So yes, a private nonprofit club recreation center is a permitted community facility activity, but that's not the only thing they're asking for. As Mr. Lee indicated in reading Governor Lee's letter, they're asking for a variety of commercial uses, such as a hotel or the guest cottages that will function as a hotel, the amphitheater, a restaurant, the driving course, and the shooting range. All of those are classified under your zoning ordinance as commercial activities. And what your zoning ordinance says is when you have multiple activities on the same lot, that you have to look at each of those activities, and each of them then has to be permitted in the R20 zoning district. And in fact, none of the commercial activities are permitted in the R20 zoning district. The R20 zoning district specifically says that it is not intended for commercial activities. And so for that reason, just on its face, this application doesn't meet the requirement of the zoning ordinance. In a conditional use permit matter, the applicant has the burden of establishing that they have met every requirement contained in the zoning ordinance for the conditional use permit. Here we have pointed out many requirements that they've not met. Therefore, the application must be denied. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Fiona Abbott, and I have a home at 5241 Old Harding Road. Our property shares a property line with this parcel to the west, and I am a licensed professional civil engineer who has worked in the built environment for 23 years. I just want to first thank you for volunteering to serve your community. The decisions you make are tough, but you need clear information to make them. The site plan provided is extremely high level. It is obvious a civil engineer has not reviewed this in detail. The majority of the site has slopes of over 15%, and many areas exceed 20%. Per your zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, they state that disturbances in those areas must be minimized or prohibited. The applicant claims only 5% of the land, about 29 acres, will be disturbed, but that doesn't hold up with the lack of detail. Just the 3-mile tract designed for 180 mile per hour speeds would require 14 to 15 acres. Add the compound, garage, and service area, and you're nearly at 25 at a high level takeoff of what was provided. It doesn't contain anything for the trails, the rifle and the clay ranges, internal roads, and even construction access and laydown, which has really been glossed over. To get to these areas, construction equipment needs to make its way back there. The real disturbance will be far more than represented, and that has direct implications for stormwater, streams, and tree and habitat loss, none of which have been addressed in the application. Access is another concern. The only point shown along Old Harding Road is in an area where slopes reach greater than 70%, and a major stream, Tally Hollow Stream, would have to be crossed at an angle. Other frontages also face slope challenges along Old Harding to get this access. And with no traffic study, we have no idea how much impact this development would actually have. So in short, this application leaves critical questions unanswered on slopes, disturbance, traffic, and environmental impacts. And I respectfully ask you to weigh those gaps carefully as you make your decision tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. I'm Keen Bartley. I'm from Nashville. I'm with the firm of Shulman, Leroy, and Bennett, and I represent Mr. and Mrs. Bynum sitting here to the left. They are the property that's going to be most directly impacted by this project, because if you all remember the map that was put up on the board, that thumb of real property that juts in and divides these tracts, that's their home, where they live and where their family lives. A lot of the speakers have already talked about the technical reasons why there's legal problems and why there are engineering and other professional problems with the approval of this project. One thing I would like the board to also examine and to remember is that this city went through a planning process that designated how this city was to grow. I come from Nashville, a city that had allegedly plans and allegedly controls, and that's why, I keep moving further west. I'm just barely over the line in Bellevue. So, I really understand the problems that can occur with growth. And as somewhat this plan has been marketed as appealing, I would ask the board to look to the plan. It's not a legally binding plan, but it's how the citizens of this city spoke on what they wanted to be developed and how they wanted this city to be developed. The area where this project would be located was designated to stay rural. That was the vision of the city and how they were going to control and encourage the type of growth that's going to happen. Properties change, people move in, things change. However, this project with the multiplicity of commercial aspects to it does not fit within the vision of what is trying to be preserved. And I would submit that on no other reason is grounds enough not to grant a conditional use for this property, because it doesn't fit within the vision that this city has had and how this city is to grow. I have submitted a letter, and I would ask that it be placed in the record. I believe it was sent to all of y'all. I'm not going to belabor and read the various things I placed in there. But I do reiterate, this project doesn't meet the city's vision. And what does the city get out of this project? It is a private club that only members can utilize. And I think that is something important to remember. Is this what this city wants to become? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Doug Berry. I'm a lawyer in Nashville with Miller Martin Law Firm. Our office is 401 Commerce Street. My private residence address is at 1735 West Harpeth Road, which is a portion of the family farm that I grew up on, and incidentally has been placed under a conservation easement. But, I represent Stuart Collier Living Trust. Mr. Collier was the first person who spoke during the comments period, and certainly adopt wholeheartedly his statements. The farm that he purchased from the same seller as in this case is immediately to the west of the property, and is particularly proximate to the racecourse aspect of it. I agree with my colleague, Jim Murphy, who talked about the various legal defects in the application. I want to point out one particular, and that is the zoning ordinance contains no definition of a rural retreat. That's how the application was submitted, and we know that. That's a given now. And the staff, and I don't have great respect for the staff and planning staff, and Mr. Carter and I have known each other for a number of years. They've attempted to place this under the community facilities activities umbrella, which is for private clubs, lodges, meeting halls, and recreation centers. I think the use of the word lodges in that definition is kind of revealing, because a lodge, in the common sense meaning of the word, typically means a man or woman's club, like the Elks, the Rotary Club, And these are not supposed to be, national travel destination, recreational facilities. In general, in residential zones, when you have conditional uses, and you all know what your duty is there, they're not specifically allowed, but with certain conditions, they may be allowed if they don't cause adverse effects to neighboring property owners. It's interesting from the literal language of the zoning ordinance, section 6-106, it provides that this district, that is the R20 district, also includes community facilities which serve specifically the residents of these districts. So community facilities are localized. They're not nationwide destinations. They're not pleasure parks. They're facilities and other things, as you all know, that are conditional uses, daycares, churches, things of that nature. That's what typically boards of zoning appeals consider. So I wanted to make that point. We certainly agree that it's inadequate. Burden of proof is on the applicant. There's inadequate proof about traffic impacts, parking plan. That's just not in the record, and that's part of the applicant's burden. My client is particularly concerned, though, about noise, and the noise from a gun range, from a sporting clays range, rifle range, and also from this car track. I'm a city attorney for another city, and we recently or currently considering, I can't remember, an ordinance about pickleball. There's a great hoorah nationwide about the noise from pickleball. But, believe it or not, both our staff, the city staff, and some of the people who came and spoke at that meeting had actual studies, data, scientific material to rely upon in making a call that a pickleball court should only be within X feet of another person. That's the burden of the applicant in this case. It's not this board's burden, it's not the neighbor's burden, and this board is entitled to have that information tonight before it makes its decision. This isn't something that can maybe defer to the planning commission stage of things. This is the only board under your zoning ordinance and state law that has the power to grant conditional use permits. As have some of the other attorneys, I turned in a letter with exhibits which has some of the applicants, or not the applicant, but the ultimate users' marketing materials in there. I think there's some things that are in there that are very concerning about not only the uses, but what the applicant's intention is. For example, in the membership agreement for the club, it's provided the member agrees that activities within the club are a private contractual matter and will not share with the local, state, or federal investigative or enforcement agencies. Now, what in the world is that? What happens in the club stays in the club? Is that the idea? I would suggest that ought to be concerning to this board. And I would join the others who have spoken against the project on behalf of my client and say, you should not grant this conditional use permit. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ron Buck. For 20 years, I lived across the street from this proposed development on what we affectionately called the Buckarosa. We named it after my family. In 2008, there was a tornado that came through Fernvale, and it completely obliterated the Fernvale Community Church. For 2 years, they met in my barn while they rebuilt and recongregated their community in that church. And we were excited about it, excited to be a part of that. And for me, that's what community is about. And, the 2010, the flood hit, which most everybody in here knows. Well, it was 15 feet deep on the backside of our property. And, then the next day it happened a second time. 3 times this spring, our back part of our property flooded again. And so you can't destroy that land by moving things upstream of it. I'm not an engineer, but I believe what you're saying about the the runoff. And this is not void of creating runoff, and there is no solution to that. I would just make one other statement. My son was born at this place. I have him here just as a testament too. He loved being raised on a farm. I was born and raised on a farm. You can't replace the community of Fernvale. You just can't. And once this is approved, then it's downhill. It's downhill from that point on. I would just encourage you, preserve what is one of the last pieces of this part of the state. I mean, Natchez Trace runs just a close distance from this. It's just such a pristine place. And I would just encourage you, by all means, don't approve this. And I would tell you also, the statement that, what are the other options? Let me tell you, there's a lot of other options. There are people that would pay big money for that whole tract of land to leave it just like it is and put one house on it. Thank you.
Yes, the people have lined up to speak, so if you decide you want to speak, you'll have to go to the back of the line.
My name is David Bynum, and as my attorney said, my wife and I are surrounded by this project on three sides. But I don't want to speak on my behalf. I want to speak on behalf of all these people behind me. They have collected 376 signatures against this project. The 19 of the 21 parcels that are immediately adjacent have signed petition against this project, and I will give them to the attorney at this time. We moved to this community 6 years ago. My wife is from south part of Franklin, and she wanted property, and we stumbled on this. And we have been very happy there for 6 years. Yes, we have been concerned about upcoming development. But for people who don't know, there's an intertwine between Old Harding Road and the South Harpeth River. It changes side of the road twice. It's a very peaceful road. As you'll see in the second page of my presentation, we have beautiful foggy mornings. We have our horses and barns, our cows, our rolls of hay, an abundance of wildlife. We have bikers that really choose to come up and down Old Harding, and they want to remain safe. We have young kids that board the bus 4 times a day, and oftentimes that's in the dark or twilight hours, and they're not really visible. The next page of my presentation shows you what the developer is not telling us. He says no traffic study is needed. Well, he needs to get into Grok and do a little bit of research. He'll find out there's a lot more traffic that this is going to generate. On the second page, you're seeing he's going to have the Coca-Cola man. He's going to have the Shell tanker truck bringing alcohol for the race cars or high-speed motor cars. Let's put it that way. I won't call them race cars. Bread delivery, everything. He's going to have 50 to 80 visits per day for his guests. That's per Grok. This is a luxury hotel, and that demands high performance. Next one up. Okay. You're going to have the ladies come into the club and then say, let's go to downtown Franklin and go shopping. That's more trips. You're going to have the bros who want to come in and do something at the club, but then in the afternoon, let's go downtown to Broadway. You got the fat cat in the big car. So there are tons of things that are going to happen that they haven't told you about. On the next page, You see the condition of the South Harpeth as it normally is. It's very, you can't really navigate it in a kayak except when there's after a rain. And we'll come back to the Harpeth a little bit later. What you're seeing in front of you is the site. And basically, we're looking up the valley between the ridge on the left where I live and the ridge on the right where the developer wants to put his racetrack. The shadows there indicate, what is going on, that there are folds in the land. DPUDC said it's a landscape worth preservation, that they approached it with deep respect. But the next slide, let's look beneath the tree canopy on the next slide. This is the GIS map for this area. The flat areas in the bottom with the blue ribbon, that's the valley floor. That's where the farmers are. But the racetrack is going to be in those ridges. And the change between the bottom and the top of those is 180 to 200 feet. The slopes on those, I appreciate my other engineer, but my calculations were a little bit different. Those slopes go up to 32%, 20 to 32%. Your code under R20 you cannot build houses that way. The code says if it's over 15% slope, you have to build a house on a 3-acre lot. If it's over 20%, you have to build it on a 5-acre lot. So Mr. Walker Lund's threat that we could get 500 or 1,000 houses thrust on it is not true. There is no truth to that. Let's proceed. So the top left is where he wants to build his racetrack. And what you're seeing is that the asphalt alone is going to be a minimum of 16 acres of asphalt. The tree clearing is going to be somewhere between 24 and 36 acres. On the right, you're seeing a similar club development up at Rockwood, Tennessee. This is the Flat Rock Motor Club for the same type of cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, etc. And you can see in the left photo all the earthwork they've had to do, and that site is not near as steep as this one. In the bottom photograph, what you're seeing is a high-speed curve, and you're going to have them. So you've got multiple lanes. The curves are probably going to be closer to 3 lanes wide. Then you've got the spin-out area. Then you've got a tire barrier, and then you've got guardrails. They are destroying this site. They're killing 300 acres of animal habitat. This business of it being 6% of site disturbance, that's not true at all. Next slide, please.
Mr. Biden gets to present longer than we did.
No interruptions, please. As Dory mentioned from Harpeth Conservancy, FEMA is concerned about this site. The heart on the bottom left, or an upside-down teardrop, however you want to describe it, is where the entrance to the site is. The floodplain already enters this site at this point. These flooding pictures are around the bridges, and I don't know whether these are 2010 or which year these were taken. Okay, this year, great. But what needs to be pointed out, and Mr. Buck was one of them, people were stranded in their homes in 2010 for 2 to 3 days. They could not get out and leave. In 2021, my son called me at 3 a.m. wanting me, because he was flooded out on the Harpeth River in Brentwood. I could not make it past the first bridge, and the water was up to the top of the cattle fence when the water receded. Ethan? Let's talk about the gun range. The gun range and rifle range, these are in the areas where the slope is 20% or more. How much land is he going to have to gouge out to create level for a rifle range and skeet range? They're placed exactly on top of the creek. Where is the lead going to go? It's going to go in the creek. There are 5 homes with wells immediately adjacent to this site, and the potential of poisoning those is just astronomical. You also had the same potential from his car garage. He plans on burying a 100-car garage underground. He's either going to break through the water table, or he's going to hit rock, and he's going to say, well, I got to bring it above ground. But you have the potential. He's going to have a garage there for servicing cars. You've got oil leakage. You've got gasoline leakage. You've got the debris from the tires on the cars that's going to come down into the stream. So we need to protect that. In the next slide, let's look at his village. Now, as an architect, we're used to scaling things and looking and all. This village is as big as my front yard. So I'm not bragging, but that is an 8-acre site. So that's 8 acres more that they're going to disturb that they haven't told you about. We were first told, Mr. Walker Lund said in my house, and told me there's going to be 20 units. And then it became 50 units. And now it's 50 with 1 and 2 bedrooms. They've got dipping pools, wide walkways between the units. Like I said, they are disturbing a lot more site, which gives a lot more runoff. Let's go to the next drawing that he had. They were implying this is all the disturbance that they were going to do. This little black line and the black blob where the compound is. That's not true. You can't do farm to table in this neighborhood or this environment without greenhouses. So he's going to have to put greenhouses next to his farm to table to make that work. That's more runoff. He's promising lately an observatory and a library that wasn't in the original submittal, but his public statements, he's putting that in there. But he hasn't identified the parking for his 50 to 60 cars for his guests, and if you do grok for a luxury hotel, the ratio is like 1-to-1, guest to staff. So there's another 50 to 80 cars for the staff, and he hasn't accounted for that. In his last page on his website, the thing says, hey, you can arrive by helicopter. There's more noise, more disturbance, land to be cleared for a helipad. Now, as my attorney said, you guys proposed, spent a lot of time to doing a comprehensive plan. Ethan. And you tagged this as being rural. You wanted to keep it rural. The new zoning code shows it rural. So the question is, why in the world is there a 50-unit hotel, a 100-car parking garage, an amphitheater, and a racetrack? The planners kept calling it a driving course. Mr. Lund, in his 126 TikToks, it's a racetrack. Something that is going to allow cars to go 180 miles an hour is a racetrack. Guys are going to try, hey, my top speed was, or my time was. That's going to happen. It is a racetrack, and it is the main driver of this project. It's not an afterthought. It's not an ancillary use. The last slide is very disturbing. This is a comment directly from Walker Lund's, or Mr. Certified Badass, as he likes to be called. This is the last slide on his webpage, where he's asking people to put up $300,000 to join. Does this look like a person who cares about the health, safety, and welfare of the public? He does risky things, and he must be denied. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm going to try my best to get through this. I don't like to speak in public.
My name is Amanda Lee Crosstone, and I live at 5143 Bedford Creek Road on property adjacent to the proposed development of 5185 Old Harding Road. I can see it out my kitchen window. 65 years ago, my grandfather, Wallace Lee, bought our farm with the dream that his children and grandchildren would one day put down roots here. That dream has been realized. All 5 children live here, as do 5 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren. Fernvale is not just where we live, it's where our family's story continues to unfold. Today, we operate a well-established cattle, hay, and horse boarding business that supports the upkeep of our farm and sustains our rural way of life. The proposed development would not only disrupt the character of our beloved community, but would also jeopardize our livelihood and the traditions that generations of families like mine have worked so hard to preserve. If you've ever spent time in this valley, in Fernvale, you have felt its quiet magic. The Lees, the Lesters, the Lintons, the Dixons, the Bournes, the Dillons, the Bennetts, the Underwoods, the Littles, the Kings, and so many other families have long called Fernvale home. I grew up swimming in the South Harpeth River with my siblings and cousins, working the farm alongside generations of my family, riding my horse through every field and valley, showing cows at 4-H and state fairs, camping under the stars and hiking through the seasons. Even as a child, I knew my upbringing was special, and I wanted nothing more than to give my own children the same kind of magical childhood. That conviction was so strong that when I met my husband, I told him, Fernvale is my home and I won't live anywhere else. Today, most evenings, you'll find us with our 2-year-old son, feeding our horses, walking down the farm road, or listening from our porch to the sounds of the woods and the creek. On weekends, my brother might stop by to let the kids play or lend a hand with chores. My aunt and I often meet in the middle on horseback, talking as we ride about the seasons, a new trail, or our next sewing project. We drive at sunset to look for wildlife or check on a cow in labor. My dad offers a honk and a wave as he drives by our house every day. Our home, the peace, the quiet, the natural rhythms of the land is our sanctuary. I'm living my dream. We are living my grandfather's dream. The reasons our family chose a rural life are the same reasons our neighbors are here. No one came for convenience or city amenities. They came to put down roots in a place where noise of modern life fades away, where families can raise animals in gardens, where there's room for outdoor living, and where community and safety bind us together. The proposed development is the opposite of those values. It's a private, overindulgent playground for the wealthy with no meaningful contribution to Fernvale or Fairview. It will only cause disruption, noise from racing engines, shots fired at all hours of the day, and amphitheater concerts that will carry far beyond the property lines. The beauty of our sunsets and clean country air would be marred by the glow of commercial buildings, the smell of exhaust, and the constant hum of their expensive sports cars. If you think you won't hear it because your property doesn't touch, or because they say they're only going to build it in a valley, then you don't understand how noise travels. I doubt the potential members of this club would tolerate such a development in their own backyards. Nothing about the details of their proposal aligns with upholding the charming rural character or protecting the natural landscape as they claim in their requests. Our farm is especially vulnerable. We currently board 45 horses with room to grow. Our customers choose Triple L for the riding space, the quiet, and the beauty. Horses are flight animals. We already maintain unwritten rules about fireworks and hunting on our property for their health and safety. Daily exposure to helicopters, gunshots, and roaring engines would create stress for both horses and riders, driving customers elsewhere. This business is not a hobby. It provides salaries, covers fuel, taxes, equipment maintenance, and ensures our family can remain here. The impact extends far beyond people. Fernvale is home to documented nesting pairs of bald eagles, to flocks of turkey and deer, to foxes and bobcats, and to smallmouth bass and turtles in the South Harpeth River, and its dozens of tributaries that run right through and around that property. Countless species depend on this delicate balance of land and water. The proposed development threatens to unravel it, destroying habitats and contaminating resources. Once farmland and open space are gone, they're gone forever. If this proposal is approved, Fernvale will never be the same. It could drive away families that have poured into this community and into Fairview for decades and devalue our surrounding property and threaten the viability of our family farm. I encourage you to think not only of today, but the generations to come. Please consider the long-term consequences of this development to our land, its inhabitants, and our livelihoods. Our dreams are at stake. Please don't do this.
My name is Eric Fold. I'm speaking on behalf of many concerned Fernvale residents, my family who strongly oppose the proposed development at Green Springs as seen on the certified Bad A website. I'm a veterinarian that works in Fairview. Thank you for taking your time to listen to my concerns in regards to the use of this property known as Green Springs. I grew up on Bedford Creek Road, less than 1 mile up the valley from the entrance of the proposed retreat. My family has been on this farm since the early 60s, as Amanda said, and have all been an integral part of Fairview, Fernvale, and the greater Tennessee community. My great-grandfather's original intention for our property was to have a place for his family to enjoy the outdoors and have a peaceful rural lifestyle. Going to both Fairview Elementary and middle schools, serving in local youth organizations like Scouts, and working at the animal clinic, I've seen a lot change in Fairview, mostly for the good of the people. My challenge to the board is to consider what this development, specifically the driving course, will bring to Fairview. Fernvale is one of the few unincorporated tranquil communities in the rapidly developing Williamson County. A road course would unsettle the fabric of a rural identity. Once the Green Springs property is cleared and paved over, it can't be reclaimed. It's permanent loss. And this is not just a piece of land. It's one of the last significant green spaces in Fairview. The driving course will degrade the ecosystem that makes our community special. The developer likes to claim in his videos and posts that he wants to preserve the natural beauty of the property, but I find that hard to accomplish, particularly with the driving course. Having a course where cars can reach 180 miles an hour begs the question, what will he do about the deer, coyote, turkey populations on the property? Is he going to high fence the property and remove these species from the driving course? If he isn't, is he willing to risk injury to guests and property? If he does remove those species from the property, what else is he going to change from his eco-friendly plan? Also in regards to the peaceful nature of our valley, how does the noise from a driving course fall in line with his preservation plan? I understand the 50 decibel electric remote control car demonstration, but that is not the reality of Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Maseratis. Living in the valley, it's easy to know when these cars are driving up and down Old Harding. I can only imagine what this sound will be like as they race along the driving course, trying to get a better lap time throughout the day. They shake their heads. This isn't a race course. This isn't a race course. These aren't race cars. Lamborghinis, Maseratis, Ferraris, Porsches, exotic cars that are made to be loud and fast. That's what this is designed for. His claims of only operating during 9 to 5 sound great for the person who travels to town to work. But what about the farmers who live and work out there, or the guests who come to Triple L Ranch? The ranch draws guests out because of its rural landscape and peaceful existence. Are you willing to sacrifice a well-established business and risk the health and welfare of the horses and people of the valley? Maybe an all-electric course would be a better option, but if the developer is willing to bend his rules on preserving the ecosystem and wildlife, will he keep his promise of driving hours and specifically noise control of the cars? We know that Fernvale is not immune to development, but we want responsible, sustainable growth that honors Fernvale and Fairview's character and environmental integrity. Please, to the planning officials and developer, hear us, protect what matters, and preserve Fernvale's unique, peaceful legacy. Say no to the proposed development. Thank you.
Hello again. How much time is remaining?
You can talk, respect the people that are by.
Very well. I believe it was Mr. Jim Murray, the attorney. He said some really good things against us, but things that I agreed with, actually, largely with respect to the powers of this board and the nature of our conditional use permit application. So I would like to review a couple things that have been said with respect to that. One was related to the traffic study requirement. I recognize that the document that I provide you is not an official traffic study. However, we have been informed by Fairview officials that no traffic study would be required because of the small nature of this property, and that the threshold, I believe, was somewhere around 1,000 vehicle trips per day was what would trigger a traffic study. So I've been informed by my team that that was not required. Beyond that, the other conditional use permit requirements, people have come to the podium to say that we are operating multiple businesses on this property, and that is not the case. Yes, we have accommodations. Yes, we have dining. There is no fee for the accommodations. There is no fee for the dining. It is a private club. Someone can have a private residence and invite people to their home, and that's kind of how a private club works. And we offer a mix of amenities that we believe our members will be enthusiastic about. Mr. Bynum has handed you a book of signatures. I mentioned this in my remarks earlier. All of those signatures were received without hearing about our plan or without this legal public discourse. They hadn't heard about it. They hadn't spoken to me. I've spoken with some people, but please, keep that in mind. Those signatures are the result of how Mr. Bynum has represented this project. And Mr. Bynum has made some gross exaggerations and unfactual statements, and he's made some factual statements out of context that I think should be addressed. He talked a little bit about slopes and gave you data around how the slope grade needs to be for building houses. And the language was about building houses. We are not putting houses on the slopes. We are not putting any facilities on the slopes. We are proposing a road course on the slopes. He also cited the motor course at the Flat Rock Speedway as an example of a road course. These are very different animals. That course is designed for F1 events. It is the highest tier. It is the largest course you can build. It requires the most severe engineering. We are designing a club course, which is something much smaller. And it's smaller, and it takes up much less space. You can't drive an F1 car on it. That would be dangerous. But we're not driving F1 cars on it, and we're not hosting races or rallies. This is a place where someone can come and drive more quickly than they should be on a public road in their Porsche, and then have lunch, and then go about their day. And the fact of the matter is, they are already doing it on Old Harding Road. And when they are involved, if you live on that road, you've heard them and you've seen them, no doubt. And it's unacceptable, and it's dangerous, and it's careless. And I can say, at the very least, none of my members will do that, because we'll revoke their membership and we won't refund their $300,000 initiation fee for that. Some people have commented. I appreciate the character accusations from people in the audience who don't know me. Classy. So as I mentioned before,
everyone has their turn to speak, and I've asked you to be polite, and I've asked you to be courteous to each and every one who speaks, not to comment on one person and not the next. Each person has their time, and be polite.
Thank you, sir. We use irreverent branding and marketing. If I were to market a motorsports resort as a nature retreat, no one would sign up. I walk a thin line, which I said earlier, of using market forces to create demand and financial mechanisms that support sustainability, and conservation. In the 20 years I spent pioneering commercial food waste composting, we were successful because we were able to compete with waste removal on price. And that was how we created the financial stability behind that. It wasn't a nonprofit, it's a financially viable thing, and markets have sprouted up because of those efforts. We have some irreverent branding. We have some things that in our branding and on our website are hyperbolic and exaggerations and not literal. And that's okay, because our members understand that, and we have a sense of humor, and I'm not going to hold that back. And that's what is happening on our website and with our branding. And the experience that we are planning to bring will truly be something. You know, we describe it as, in some of our marketing material, and I think this is probably the best description, is Amman meets Nürburgring. And if you've ever been to Amman Resort, they are just beautiful and incredibly peaceful, and the service is just out of this world. You walk on the property, and the service staff will know your name, and they treat you with so much respect. This is a place with style and class and a flair of the irreverence. And so I apologize if you don't think the branding is funny and you don't like the picture of the woman who had too much of a good time. I don't think she's dead. I think she just partied a lot. I didn't really think too much about that particular image. We're just trying to get people's attention. Getting people's attention is a pretty difficult thing. We obey the law. We know a lot about what a private members association is, as well as a 501c7, which is a private social club, and these are distinct but overlapping entities. And then there was a gentleman, I forget who brought up a specific clause from our membership contract that just has a lot to do with the history of what a private members association is. A private membership association is a legal structure that is constitutionally protected to preserve our right to gather. And it's a really important right to protect. And that clause is pretty boilerplate for private members associations that are formulated with that right in view, because it requires the authenticity of members who are joining, as opposed to members who join with dishonest intentions. My private members association has many veterans who lead excursions for us or who are members and come on our excursions. We work a lot with veterans and police, and it's a huge part of what our community is. What else? So I'm going to yield back at this point, but it is our belief that we explicitly meet the requirements of the conditional use as defined in the code, that this is not a commercial operation, and that what we have presented for our application meets the requirements of the application. It would be undue to require fully stamped engineering drawings to present a, hey, are we allowed to do this here request? And that's really what the conditional use permit is. There are other steps after this that get into all of the very particular details about the engineering, about the safety, about fire and emergency access, about runoff, and all of these things. And we look forward to cooperating and collaborating and coming up with something that I truly believe Fairview will be very proud to have. Thank you all very much. I appreciate everyone coming out. I am incredibly empathetic towards those who feel that this will tarnish the nature of Fernvale. It is truly our intention to not do that. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Zena Izquierdo, and I live at 5251 Old Harding Road. Dear Board of Zoning Appeals, I'm here today to speak about voting against allowing a private rifle range, road course, etc. to be constructed. Noise pollution and public harm, 17.105.4 standards for variance. This is in violation of criteria number 5. motor speed cars, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, McLarens, etc., exceed 100 plus miles per hour with 100 decibels, capable of permanent hearing loss in under 2 minutes. Multiplied this by the proposed 10 cars racing at once, operating 7 days a week, 9 to 5, plus evening events. Track is proposed on elevated terrain, amplifying sound through the hills and valleys, violating standard number 5. Variances must not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property. Key environmental failures. Building the track will cause destruction of rural land, dense forest and vital soil. This will be replaced by the construction and use of miles of impervious surfaces for the racetrack, 100-car underground parking, shooting range, cottages, dining, wellness center, spa, amphitheater, which will severely affect the numerous watersheds, dramatically increasing flooding and landslide conditions, which have already impacted the hillsides and valleys. Homes and acreages have been decimated in the immediate proximity to this project and downstream for miles. Safety and fire hazards, as presented by Mr. Lund, the use of candles, oil lamps, fire pits for lighting in a wooded rural area presents a significant fire risk, especially during droughts, of which there are many. Violating criteria 5 and 6 of standards variance. Traffic safety and infrastructure strain will profoundly be compromised, violating criteria 5 and 6 of standards variance. Exploiting the zoning process. Many of the people here may not know at this time a new zoning code has been proposed by the City of Fairview to be voted on September 18th. As stated just a moment ago, the course developer has said that when the new zoning code passes, he can proceed without permit reviews. Our understanding is the same urban and planning group that designed the new zoning for Fairview is collaborating with the race course developer. The race course is not low impact, no matter how it is branded. It is harming soil and wildlife, the indigenous species, many of which are on the endangered list. Developers' actions, proposals, and plans will be environmentally harmful, zoning inappropriate, in violation of multiple criteria for zoning variances, and publicly dangerous. As a resident who borders this property, I respectfully oppose this project and ask that the zoning committee deny the variance, preserving the rural character and peace of one of the last rural treasures in Williamson County. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening. My name is Sydney Reichman. I'm at 5251 Old Harding, that's in the county. I am passionate and I care deeply about this land, our air, our watersheds, and our community's legacy. For generations, as you've heard before, from the Lintons in the 1700s, still residing here, to the Bruces who once owned most of Fernville, still residing here, to the Lees farmers, 5 generations deep, still living here up Bedford Creek, 5 generations, and you met some fabulous generations here tonight already. So Whippoorwill Camp, 50 years, shepherded thousands, tens of thousands, really thousands each year, but into a deep and abiding experience with nature. Families have lived, loved, and protected this valley, and these generational families and more that I couldn't get in are still residing here. What's being proposed is anything but protection. It's environmental annihilation, greenwashed with words and a past green life, which I'm not denying he had, but if he really felt that way, why would he be doing this? I mean, this is, let's call this road course what it really is. It's a toxic, noise-deafening industrial experiment bubbling up a deadly cocktail on the beautiful forested ridges of Fairview, home to so many endangered species, aquatic plants, and great avian world. This is even a vital flyway for exotic birds on their migratory paths. But I heard he said, well, I could put up a wall at his talk. So when that was raised to him, which doesn't make any sense. But soon, this place could send a lethal brew of pollutants into our watersheds, destroying fragile ecoforests and ecosystems, and poisoning the air we breathe and the silence we cherish. In addition, I was here for the floods of 2010 and 79. Many of those homes below this area and land were devastated. The type of situation will absolutely worsen the already tragic flooding in this area and downstream. This is not a few weekend laps like he talks about, like that's going to get rid of those weekend laps in Old Harding. We can get rid of them, hopefully. But what will happen if this happens is this is going to be Grand Central Station for weekend laps, because he will be attracting those kind of people with those kind of cars, because they'll say, well, everybody can do it. It's Fernvale. That's where they do that. So this will be daily disruption, but his will be daily disruption, not just on the weekend. From early morning to evening with high-octane noise, toxic gas, exhaust, oil, brake fluid, antifreeze runoff, and air thick with burning, screeching tires. And those tires, I read, I can't even pronounce most of the things that come off those tires. This will all be leached into our beautiful watersheds, into the South Harpeth and downstream. Now, the very soil would be soaked in carcinogens and pollutants that threaten every life, unfortunately worse for our children. And sounds will reverberate through the valleys, silencing the birds, frogs, owls, herons, deer, whippoorwills, driving away wildlife if it doesn't poison them first. And I mention these because I've seen every one of these today and more. Now, this is all for the private playground of a very few people. And yes, they are wealthy. We have lots of wealthy residents, and we have lots of middle-income residents and lower-income residents, and that's what makes our community beautiful. But this is a very particular, they're not going to live here. They're not going to care about our environment. They're just going to come here to use it as a recreation. So I don't care that they're rich. I just care that they're doing it at the expense of this community. That's not service. That's sabotage. His so-called sound burns, which he's going to build, I heard in his talk, they're ridiculous. I live in a holler. I live in the bottom of a holler. There are hills all around me and one opening in front, which is forested. These hills are sound burns. They're 800 feet tall, and they're forested all the way up and on top. And I can hear way past his place, because we've done experiments when I was talking on the phone to people. I heard a siren. I said, I hear that same siren in my valley. Where are you? And she said, I'm going up Whippoorwill Hill. Not Camp Whippoorwill, but way before you enter Fairview. That was miles away. And though it's a beautiful sound, I do hear the gorgeous cows on Lee Farm 5 miles away. So I know how far you can hear sound. It bounces through those hills as gunshots bounce through the hills. I spent nearly 50 years here, and I was an artist coming out here to be an artist in nature, and I found I didn't have the money to buy anything gorgeous, and I found this really damaged land. It had been the result of a botched development, clear cut, briars, swamps. Nobody wanted it. My friends laughed at me. My husband said, ex-husband said, why would you buy this place? It's ridiculous. And he just didn't believe anybody could do anything with it. Of course, he came out years later and was quite proud of it. But I spent all those years planting trees, rebuilding the land. It was my honor and my dream and what I believed in, because I was from that 60s group that was going back to the land, and I'm still there. And I hold a deep and sacred reverence for my neighbors, for this quiet, subtle, enduring beauty of Fernvale and the Fairview Hills, and going into Fairview for my business. I used to go to Nashville, but I go to Fairview now for about everything. We've turned broken land down here. I'm not the only one that did that. There are hundreds of families doing the same thing in their own way, turning broken land into a living paradise. This road course would undo that work in an instant and turn it into an unlivable wasteland. I urge you to choose restoration over destruction. Help us in keeping this green corridor as a testament to the wisdom we can leave for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, so that they may still experience what's left of God's green earth. You had the power to say no to this toxic vanity project. Protect this valley so that in 100 years, people are still calling it, with their families, paradise. Now, I want to say something about Mr. Lund. This was years ago, and when we were fighting to Mr. Lund about this, because when we were fighting the Green Springs 500 houses, it wasn't the houses on the slopes that was bad. It was the fact that when someone, Paul Sloan, said at the very end, you could hear a pin drop after he said this, you cannot get emergency vehicles up these hills. The grade is too steep. He mentioned, well, we need that for going down to 96. If there's an emergency, if somebody gets hurt in one of these car accidents, it's going to happen. I'm sure something will happen up there. Or why would he build an emergency station? They still have to get to the hospitals. They still have to go up those grades. And if they weren't suitable back then, why would they be suitable now? So I am totally opposed to this project for so many reasons, and I hope you will vote it down. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Doug Kaufman. My wife and I live at 5144 Bedford Creek Road, right across the street from Amanda and Clint. Amanda spoke earlier. We are not lifetime Tennesseans. We weren't born here. We weren't raised here. My wife and I have traveled the world, and when it was time for us to retire, of all the beautiful places we've seen and been, we chose to buy a home and property here on the edge of Franklin. It's a beautiful little road, Bedford Creek. It has hills coming up on both sides with a small valley in the middle. And I heard someone talking about how sound reflects off the hills and bounces around. And our house is the perfect example of that. My wife and I love to sit on our front porch, which actually faces towards Old Harding Road. In fact, we face directly towards the property in question. It's about a half mile as the crow flies, and maybe a little longer than that by road. But we can sit out on our porch, and we can hear our neighbors riding horses up and down the road. Even when they're too far away to see, we can hear people talking and having conversations as they walk their children and their dogs and their pets and their kids up and down our road with the neighbors. It's a beautiful, beautiful little road. We love our neighbors. One of the things they do every year is they have a kind of a hayride for all the kids in the neighborhood at Halloween time. One year, my wife and I dressed up as cows so we could pass out candy to the kids. Another year, we dressed up in chicken outfits and clucked at all the kids as they drove by. But it's a very quiet area. We see daily, we see deer and we see foxes. We have a herd of they're not herds, but turkeys, a turkey flock, sorry. A turkey flock that walks through our property and intermingles with our chickens, and we see them every week. And it's just such a beautiful, wonderful place to be. We first fell in love with this area from driving down that road from 96 Old Harding Road, and you drive down that road and you've got tall strands of trees on both sides of the road that line the road, and the sunlight shimmers through the trees as it winds down the valley towards Bedford Creek. And it's simply, it was amazing to us. And I know that we don't have the history of being here our whole lives. But since we moved here 8 years ago, we've had other family members that have come out to Tennessee and live within a couple miles of us. My wife's oldest daughter and her grandkids now live here. My older brother and younger brother both live out here. And we have always looked at this as the place that we want to grow old together. We call ourselves late middle age at this point. So, but it's just a beautiful area. Now, our front porch also faces directly towards the property in question. We have a cow pasture, and then we have a field where horses are, and there's a small stable there, and then there's the property on the hill. And we worry about a couple things. You know, I know the gentleman talked about how 55 decibels is quiet, but it's really not. We were here all trying to be quiet, and we've got the hum of air conditioners. We've got people whispering and talking back to themselves. And if you can imagine sitting on your front porch as the sun's going down, which, by the way, is directly out in front of our front porch, and hearing the sounds of air conditioning and people whispering all the time, I think you would think that maybe that's not as quiet as you would like it to be. We don't want to hear race cars. We don't want to hear shooting range, because we know all that sound reflects down our quiet little valley and bounces off the hills and bounces off the road. And we just don't want it. We just don't want it. It's such a quiet, beautiful place. If you could come down there, bring a lawn chair, sit out on the road and listen to what's going on. You know, we can listen to the whippoorwills in the evening and the frogs that are trying to climb their way into our pool. We hear the cicadas in the trees, everything. And it's would be a shame to destroy such a beautiful, quiet environment. I love our neighbors. We have some of the greatest neighbors in the world. And I know their hearts are broken because they've lived here generations and generations, and they love this place so much. And we do too. Please, please help all these fine people save their neighborhood, keep it quiet, and keep it country. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Courtney Scott. I live at 5386 Old Harding Road. My wife Susie and I bought our home there in 2013, and we've been very happy there in our 5 acres, which is our own bird sanctuary, really. And we have our own spring water. It's one of those beautiful parts of Fernville that everybody loves, those kinds of things that we have. I'm a former legal analyst and regulatory compliance analyst, and I'd also been a social worker. And the point I wanted to make is not only do I agree with all the good things these folks have said, but I want to point out how important behavior is. Because if you don't learn about behavior and become able to predict it, then it can turn around and bite you really quickly. And especially law enforcement people know this to be true. I have heard our community described in a way that is not very useful and not very accurate. And I find myself in my own little heaven here in Fernvale, which to me is the retreat, okay? Let's define our terms. Nobody needs to bring a retreat into Fernvale like what is being proposed. And if I see myself standing at my door and a business comes to my face and says, we want to put a retreat down your road here. I think, oh, sounds interesting. Well, what's it like? Well, it's a racetrack for high-speed cars, and it's a shooting range. Okay, well, that sounds honest, but that's very shocking. And I would tell that person, no, the Fernvale is the retreat already. And it doesn't need something like that to make it more of a retreat. So that description right out of the barrel is disingenuous to me. That is behavior that, you can say what you want about sales and marketing and stuff like that. All of it is basically meant to manipulate and lead people to do certain things. Some of it's harmless, some of it's great, some of it's not. But when you understand the behavior behind it and the intention, and realize that that behavior and intention can be repeated in the future, especially when it is portrayed so shamelessly in front of a group like this, which I don't think anybody in here is a cartoon character carrying a torch at all. I don't see any ignorant people in here. That makes my gut churn. And that kind of behavior and that kind of rhetoric that leads to this kind of uncaring situation in a community has to touch your heart and not just your pocketbook. And I think I've said what I meant to say. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen. My name is Robert Bennett. I've been a resident down here since about '63. Most people here know in the valley there where the big cliff is, where the flag's on top, our property backs up to the back side of that. I've been fortunate to live down here a long time. I'm not claiming to be an educated man like a lot of the people up here today. I was a law enforcement officer for 32 years, and I have made some observations here today that I think makes it very simple for y'all, because if he wants to follow the law, he can't have a racetrack and he can't have a firing range, because the gentleman just spoke before me. We checked his language level and he was at 74 decimals just speaking. So he can't have a racetrack because unless he has electric cars. And how are you going to have a firing range? We keep talking about the noise level. He can't have a 22. So it's what he's proposing, and then what, by his own words, 55 is the maximum that Fairview will allow. Well, then he can't have those two. So if you must approve this, I would put I request respectfully that you put a stipulation in that they scratch the racetrack and the firing range. Now, at a meeting we had at his office last week, he had a picture of the racetrack, and he made a very clear emphasis that they were going to leave the trees to keep the nature and the sound down. And being a police officer for 32 years, I pulled several deceased people from cars that were mutilated, that ran off and hit trees and guardrails and such. So I brought that point up, that by your own advertisement, you're advertising that they can get 180 miles an hour, but you're leaving the trees right next to the road course. I said trees and speed equal death. And he agreed that it was up to the driver to drive safely. Well, you're not coming out there to drive safely. You're coming out there to see if you can do that 180 miles an hour. The other thing is these cars these are not going to be beat up jalopies. These are going to be very fine automobiles, which is great, but I do know they also have exhaust cutouts on them where you just hit a button and it bypasses the muffler system. And they come from that way from the factory. And you're not going to, I just can't believe these people are not going to hit that cutoff when they're racing that car, because you can get 15 to 20, 25 more horsepower out of that motor. That's just, and the car and the gun range, just on the noise level itself, by his own admission, he can't have a gun range and he can't have a racetrack by your laws and your ordinances or whatever. Let's see if there was one other thing I wanted to say, but when you ask about the rifle range, I was advised that the rifle range was only going to be 100 foot long. And I questioned that as, you mean 100 yards long? And he assured me that the rifle range was only going to be 100 feet long. Well, I was a firearms instructor for 22 of those 32 years in law enforcement. When you got law enforcement officers here, and you've got anybody here with 1 eye and half sense can tell you that's not a rifle range at 100 feet. At best, that's a pistol range. So either something, I just do the simple math. Something's not adding up here because that's not a rifle range, but he's advertising a rifle range. But at the most, that's a pistol range. But anything he shoots there, unless he's using air guns and electric cars, is not going to fall within what the city requires. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I certainly didn't expect to be this late tonight, but I spent an hour and 45 minutes stopped on Highway 100 in a big traffic jam out here, ironically with emergency vehicles screaming by me. I don't know if someone died in a car wreck, but there's probably a strong possibility. My name's Demetria Kaladimos. I want to make it clear that I'm here tonight as a private citizen for the first time in my 41 years in Middle Tennessee. I'm at a public hearing because my husband and I own property at 5865 Old Highway 96 in Fernvale. If you like music and you've ever watched PBS, you might recognize our little place from our songwriter show called Barnegie Hall. When we were filming our show about 10 years ago, it was already a growing Fernvale, little different, but still pretty peaceful. It was fall, and I believe the start of dove season, so we had to pause the cameras for the sound of gunshots and the occasional crow, motorcycles too, but mostly bicycles. Noise, as you know, and has been said tonight, has an amazing ability to travel. We are a few miles down the road from the site, but we're highly concerned about the plans for this elite private club that seems to cater to folks who would never have chosen to live out here. The biggest concern, we've heard, the noise and the traffic. The sound of a screaming engine is part of the experience. It's why Harley-Davidson trademarked its motorcycle sound. How in the world is a decibel limit truly enforceable? That's just words on paper. If this place is allowed to establish ingress and egress on Old Harding or Old 96 or wherever, it is bound to increase traffic exponentially from service vehicles, employees, deliveries, food, gasoline. And speaking of that fuel, if a car were to crash and catch fire, a few dry weeks out here could be devastating for the nearby valley. Controlled burns have not been part of the management here or much of anywhere in Tennessee. I just did a story on it. We have looked closely at this developer's profiles and social media posts. He talks about the occasional lunatic potentially being invited, so-called certified badasses, and he's chosen some pretty questionable imagery for a high-class club. Maybe it is a joke. We didn't take it that way. We believe that this planned use is highly inappropriate for the existing area. What if the flip side were being proposed? If a Fernvale cattle farmer wanted to start a club for farmers in the heart of downtown? Doubly distressing is the realization that this entire zoning codes can be changed out here without a word of public comment, and that this is essentially a done deal, as we've been told. That is a shame, folks. The biggest dilemma for all of Middle Tennessee right now is how to invite progress without selling our souls, and how to keep family living affordable and attainable. We see this one as a fire sale on the soul of Fernvale at the speed of a foreign race car, and we want you guys to slam on the brakes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joseph Kleinard. I didn't come here with anything prepared, but I felt from my heart that I needed to speak. My family has been part of Fernvale since the 1800s, and my great-great-grandfather owned the old hotel that used to be known as Fernvale Springs Hotel. It burned down, they rebuilt it, and it burned down again. But there's still a plaque there that talks about the old Fernvale Springs as soon as you take a left onto Old Harding. My grandmother spent many summers there as her summer home. She was actually the first female mayor of Fairview. So I am speaking on behalf of her. I'm speaking on behalf of my grandfather, Joe Kleinert. Both were integral members of Fairview. My grandmother brought the public library to Fairview. I have a hard time believing that she would want this development to happen, as she was very democratic and was all about, she taught me how to recycle. She was very pro-women. She was a pioneer in many ways. She had the first radio show for Nashville, call-in radio show back in the 60s called Party Line with Mary. So she has been a huge part of Fairview's history, as well as the rest of the Kleinert family. And for them, for myself, for the past generations and the future generations that call Fernvale home, I'm asking you to please reconsider this, and I'm not going to beat on a dead horse. I think all of the points that were made by everyone that opposes this hit the nail on the head, and again, I'm just asking you as a lifelong citizen of Fernvale and Fairview, a former combat U.S. Army veteran and a former firefighter for the city of Nashville, that please consider the concerns of everyone here as far as safety, the environment, and I think that's all I have, but thank you guys.
Good evening. My name is Erica Garrison, 1221 Broadway, Nashville, Tennessee. I'm here on behalf of Marshall and Fiona Abbott, who own property immediately adjacent to this property. And I'm here with my law partner, Jim Murphy, who spoke at the beginning of the meeting. First of all, I want to thank you so much. It's been a long night. You've heard a lot. It's a big decision, and we thank you for your patience and attention. I will be very brief. We've heard a lot of emotion, a lot of concerns and frustration, and a love for this land and the community and their rural way of life. What's driving this frustration, I believe, is a deep desire to protect the community and to ensure that the laws and requirements of your code are met and followed. In this case, we urge you to boil it down to a simple fact. The code, we believe, is not being followed. The conditional use permit application doesn't satisfy the code requirements, and the applicant has failed to meet his burden. As we said in our letter and earlier today, the site plan lacks the sufficient detail that the code requires. There's no parking plan. There was no traffic study other than traffic counts that were broadly referenced this evening. The project is inconsistent with the general plan. It is a commercial project by nature. It is not consistent with the agricultural and rural residential intentions for this area. Again, these are commercial uses, and we ask that you disapprove it tonight. Thank you.
Last but briefest, I hope. Basically, my name's Howard Mann. I live at 7309 Cold Harbor Court in Fairview. My wife, Janice Anderson, comes from the Anderson family. It's been here since 1802, so I could go on and on about that, but I won't because she's sitting back there and she'll probably throw something at me. Two questions come to my mind. One is, how does this proposed project benefit the community? I have not heard an answer on that yet. Secondly, this question actually was brought up during the presentation. Is there a better way? The answer is no. Thank you.
Well, last and least, I guess. My name is J.D. Dixon. I represent the Dixon family. I've been here since 1982. Thank you guys and ladies for standing up and making a job out of doing the will of the people. Well, we are the people, and we stand opposed to this project. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Keith Branson. I live at 7715 Fernville Road. Some of you know Fern Top School. We're just down the hill right on Huntingcamp Creek. Since we've lived there, the subdivision to our north has continued to encroach toward that land, and when we get a good rain, we get all the silt in the creek. So I'm understanding what some of the talk has been about the land and the topography. We're probably 2 miles from Highway 100 as the crow flies, but I can hear occasional motorcycle, truck go by. But what I don't hear usually is anything but the birds and the quiet. And I think that's part of the theme that I keep hearing over and over is a precious, priceless thing that we have widespread in our community is a serenity and a peace that couldn't be replaced once noise comes. So there's all the things you've been presented I can't add to. I think probably because of the way I'm wired, I'm not your engineer, I'm not the soil conservationist guy. I'm someone who cares about people and how we treat each other. And I would want to say to you in your opening comments that I'm really sad to hear that you had a threat on you personally. And your family being here, it's beautiful.
I have not been threatened.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought there had been a threat to you. Okay.
So questionable encroachment of privacy, but I have not.
Okay, so the community here that I love and are part of, that would sadden me if any of us acted that way toward you for any reason. And it made me think, well, maybe that was the reason that I feel a poor choice of an illustration when you opened up calling us villagers in red suits. So I'm a villager with a red shirt, and you did ask, pretty close, how would I come to sign the petition? I had a neighbor send me an email and ask me, would I come tonight? And I said, well, what's it about? We got links. I got to your website. And I think it was at that moment when I found what I felt was sort of an arrogance and a presumption. I read this like it already existed. And it really struck me. And then your opening comments, it really was grievous in that way. And I don't think that represents you as a person. But what we're seeing and what I'm saying is I don't oppose race cars or racing cars or shooting guns, but just not here and not in this community. And the final comment, I hope for all of you guys as leaders and the community who's shown up here for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, is the passion that's in this community for who we are. And I feel like, and I hope, that an event like tonight will help galvanize somehow in the community a better clarity of our culture, who we are here, and what we do value for now and for the future. So maybe out of all of this comes some good, that we can look at each other and say, tonight we stood together in a way that helps define who we are as a community. So I do stand here opposing this for our future. Thank you.
If that's it, we will go forward with the meeting. We have the public hearing. We've had a lot of people make a lot of comments, very passionate, very much understanding for me. I've been in this community right at 10 years. I was born in Nashville, raised in a state to the north, but I've been here over 10 years. And so I really appreciate what you say. And I would like to, at this time, open this.
Chair, if you would put on the record that the public hearing has been closed, and then we can move to discussion among the board, and then I have a few comments, hopefully, to guide the board in your task.
That was going to be my next question. With that statement, the public hearing has been closed officially. We have had quite a participation, and it's very thankful.
All right, board, much has been said. Some of it's factual, some of it's anecdotal, some of it's emotional. You're charged with something pretty simple here, despite the fact that it's taken us 2.5 hours to get here. It's with deciding whether the applicant should receive a conditional use permit or not. Your focus is very narrow and the criteria is very specific. You are what's considered a quasi-judicial board. That means you're akin to a judge. Your decision cannot be arbitrary or capricious. You can't make the decision whether you like a person or not, whether the application is granted or, whether you have some sympathy for farmers in the area. Those aren't the criteria. The criteria are actually set out in the zoning code. And so, and I believe Mr. Greer has put those in the report that he gave you. But the first question is, the burden of proof is on the applicant. Has the applicant proven that he's able to meet the required standards? 2, has the applicant demonstrated he can comply with all the applicable regulations? For example, is what the applicant proposing meet the definition of a community facility? Is applicant proposing commercial uses on the property? Those are the questions you should examine under that criteria. 3, does the application conform with the general plan for the property? Under the city's 2040 plan, the general plan is a rural, I believe it's a rural settlement. And so is what is proposed compliant with a rural settlement in the 2040 plan? 4, traffic impact. While the applicant is not required to have a traffic study at this point, you do need enough information to decide whether it's going to cause a traffic concern or not. And so you need to ask yourself, there's no site plan, you don't have a site plan, but do you have enough information to even decide whether there's a traffic issue here or not? That's a question you have to ask yourself. Parking adequacy. Again, there's no site plan yet. It'd be good if there was a site plan because you need to examine whether there's adequate parking. And then 6, you can, if you approve it, you can approve it with additional conditions or considerations. And so if you get to that point, then you need to ask yourselves, should there be hours of operation? Questions like that. Finally, whatever you do, when you make your motion, you should have a robust discussion. And when you make your motion, whether it's to approve or disapprove, you should state your reasons, and then you should adopt those reasons as part of the motion. If you just make a motion to approve and don't state why, it's going to be difficult to figure out why you approved it or why you disapproved it. So please be explicit in that regard and state the basis of your motion. And the person that seconds it is going to be seconding those same comments. And then when you take the vote, then those will be the findings of fact and the conclusions of law that you've made, okay?
Yes, I understand. We're going to read the written resolution as it was presented to us, and then we will open up for discussion.
Resolution number BZA-01-25, a resolution of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Fairview, Tennessee, approving the conditional use request for a rural retreat, map 041, parcel 052.00, property owner Green Springs Prop LLC. Whereas Mr. Walker Lund is seeking approval of a conditional use permit for a rural retreat, owner Green Springs Prop LLC. And whereas the City of Fairview zoning ordinance, Article 6, Section 6-106, purposes of intents of R20 single-family and two-family residential districts include private nonprofit clubs, lodges, meeting halls, and recreation centers as a conditional use within the R20 single-family and two-family residential districts. And whereas the intent of the conditional use is to construct a rural retreat for a private nonprofit club, lodge, meeting hall, and recreation centers, and is presented as Exhibit BOZA-01-25A. And whereas the conditional use permit is to construct the following amenities: agricultural use area, nature trails, vehicle garage, amphitheater, clubhouse, sporting clay course, rifle range, approximately 3-mile driving course, emergency services site, and less than or equal to 50 detached residential units.
Thank you for reading that resolution. And with that, I would now entertain a resolution, a proposal before this board. Does anyone have a proposal?
I think it's important that you have a discussion tonight.
Yeah.
So even if you don't plan, the motion will be a motion to approve, and then a second, and then you have a discussion. By making the motion to approve, it doesn't mean that you're going to approve it, but you need to have something to discuss and then vote upon ultimately. So you're not, you may be feeling that I'm either for or against this, and I don't want to make a motion that seems like I'm going to vote one way or another, but the motion's just to get it on the floor. It doesn't bind you to a certain position.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Open for a second. We are open for a second. Open for a second. Now we'll be open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Greer, I want to ask you a question about the private nonprofit clubs, lodges, meeting halls, and recreation centers that we're evaluating this special permit for. Can you help us understand under what part of this section was it, what did the city take in order to say that this is what it would qualify under, or just to propose that it would qualify under here? Is there anything you could add to that, or the city's understanding of that?
What was presented to our office was that this was a private nonprofit membership club. And so following our regulations, that falls under the use listing as private nonprofit club, which is listed as a conditional use under the R20 zoning district.
Okay, and also, on a different note, this property is zoned as R20 with conservation development from what I've seen. And there was proposal for homes to be built on the site in the past. Is there any ideas on why? I know it was a long time ago that we annexed this property in from my research. So it's been here for a while in the city. Why didn't we put a golf course and neighborhood on this area? Do you have any insights into that?
I do not have any insight to the exact reason that that project fell through. This property was annexed into the city in November of 1990. That project was originally approved in 91 or 92 for the zoning on that parcel. At that time, just so we all know the history, half of Old Harding Road that touches the frontage of this property was annexed into the city of Fairview, and then in 2000, that piece of Old Harding Road was de-annexed from the city and was retained by Williamson County. So Old Harding Road is completely within Williamson County. The city of Fairview does not have any jurisdiction over Old Harding. The reason for this project not coming to fruition with the original development, outside of it never did, I do not have an answer for that.
Understandable. And there was a comment earlier in the public hearing, I believe, from an attorney that stated that he believed that there needed to be a site plan submitted with the, is that, to your understanding, would that be true or not? I suppose not for the city of Fairview, since that didn't come forward.
So for the purposes of this and looking back through the history of Fairview of what has been accepted as a site plan, the illustrated plan that is on the screen before you, in our staff's opinion, is believed to accomplish goal 3 of the general plan, which states a conditional use shall be in accordance with the general plan. The Board of Appeals shall determine from its review of the site plan if it meets that. This plan, our staff believe that it gave enough description of what they intended to do for you to make a reasonable decision if this was their intention. Going through and doing a full-blown site plan would ultimately be at the review of the Planning Commission subsequent if this were to be approved.
If I might, Chair, my take on that is a site plan, as it would be considered by the Planning Commission, is not required. But at the same time, this board needs sufficient information to make a decision regarding traffic and parking and use of the land. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, despite what staff's opinion might be, whether it's sufficient or not, you need to decide whether it's sufficient or not for you to make the decision, since you're the decision maker.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. I have so many questions, a lot more questions than answers that really don't pertain to what I'm here to make a decision for. It does, but it would take all night for me to ask them. But last thing I want to state is just a comment to Mr. Lund. You understand you're not from Fairview, therefore you don't understand the strong values of this town. But I just can't agree with the statements that were made in your proposal about the Fairview residents here and at home or anywhere else. They show up for this town, they show up for each other, and they show up with love and respect just as much as any other southern small town would. So I just want to say that I took a bit of offense to that, sir.
This is it's not a give and take, and so the board's obviously allowed to make comments. I would ask Mr. Lund not to make any further comment. Same thing would go for the rest of the public that's here. This is a board discussion. Mr. Mitchell, you're obviously entitled to make that comment, but I would ask that you keep your offense to those comments separate and not part of the decision, because it's not one of the appropriate criteria.
Understand.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my main concern with it was like Mr. Carter here covered about the traffic issue. Not only that is the damage to the infrastructure of a project of that mass of a scale going, the concrete trucks go in, out, asphalt. I mean, you got to think the infrastructure, I mean, is just not going to hold up to just constant traffic like that. Bringing in your pipe, your drainage boxes, all that. And the traffic study, like Mr. Carter was saying, I would more information. I don't think enough information was given on that, because okay, when the schools are running, the traffic. I mean, every citizen that lives there knows everybody uses Fairview for cut through when 100 backs up. Am I right? Okay. So you're adding tenfold onto that, and a more sufficient traffic study would. I mean, it just wasn't sufficient enough. I didn't think it was, and that's all I got to say.
Is that something we can conditionally request? More study or anything like that?
The condition wouldn't be more study. It would be that you put a limit on the number of trips to the property. But frankly, I don't know how you would do that, because I don't think you have enough information in this application, if you're asking me my opinion.
That it? Anyone else? Comments? Discussion?
I think it would be good to discuss whether this board thinks it's in compliance with the 2040 plan, because that's one of the criteria. So the 2040 plan lists this property, again, as rural settlement. It's unusual wording, rural settlement. And so it would be appropriate for you to discuss whether you think that this applicant's plan is compliant with the 2040 plan of a rural settlement, especially with regards to the car track and the shooting range and the other uses that are being suggested. And I would also encourage you to talk about, even though it's said that it's a private club, and it may be, but are the uses akin to commercial uses? Those would be things this board should talk about and reach some consensus about, in my opinion.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing it up, because I was going towards that with this comment. And Mr. Lund, thank you for everything you've done. I will say I do enjoy, personally, I do enjoy what you're trying to do as far as me doing it personally. So in that respect, I am a fan of the idea. With that being said, there's more to it than that, as we've just discussed. And again, with the 2040 plan and the description given in the 2040 plan, it's been said here tonight, read it before we got here, I'm sure we all did. With the number of, before I even finish that, with the number of members, with the number of vehicles, you know, I've spent a lot of time at the Golf Club Tennessee. I know how that facility works. I know how it I know the traffic that comes in there. I know how it comes in and out. I know, I liken, when I first heard about this project, that I felt like that was kind of like a sister kind of feeling as far as that environment goes. Two different types of facilities, obviously, but the membership, the type of membership that is hoped to draw and stuff like that is very similar. With that being said, I do think, regardless of the traffic and the parking, because that place over there has, Golf Club Tennessee has over 400 members, and parking is never an issue, and the parking is a postage stamp. But with that being said, the 2040 plan for me, number 3, the general plan, this idea and this project, from what I heard tonight and the information that has been gathered tonight, doesn't fit for me that rural setting that the 2040 plan talks about. I like everything about the project, and I may be one of the few. I like the idea. However, that 2040 project was voted on by citizens of Fairview, and it was their vision of what Fairview should look like by the year 2040, and kind of govern in the meantime what that looks like building up to 2040. And out of the 6 points that we brought up, the third one is the general plan. For me, I feel like it misses the intended purpose of the 2040 plan. So that's where I'm at. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think I agree. I don't think that the definition of the project is probably what would be a rural settlement. I agree with my colleague here that I do appreciate the project. I think it's a lot more in line with what this community would probably want compared to another housing development of 500 houses. Obviously, I think but ultimately, as council said, we're here to determine if it falls within the guidelines, and I don't believe it does. But my biggest concern is sometimes the devil you know is better than the one you don't know. So.
Mr. Chairman. We have new zoning ordinances that are open for public comment right now, and then the 2040 plan taking that in consideration as rural settlement. Mr. Greer, I think it's a question for you. This is R20 now, and I know that there's that grandfather clause. It would be in the new zoning ordinance still remain as an R20, or since it's undeveloped, would that change anything? Would it become a different zoning in the new zoning ordinances?
Two different things. The property is zoned R20, but the future desired use as passed by the BOC was as a rural, I can't remember, it's a rural settlement. That's a very, I do a lot of this, and that's a very unique way to put that concept. But a rural settlement, they don't have to, the zoning of the property doesn't have to match what the 2040 plan says. Mr. Greer's shaking his head that I'm correct about that. So they don't equate.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So then I would have to agree with the other comments from the board, that 2040 plan being pretty on point with what it calls this area. And it does seem like eventually there might be some development on this land. And I know that we have a desire to keep it as a city in a certain nature. So I just want to say that I agree with the rest of the board.
Yes, I would like to add that one question that, just for general knowledge, if you have a zoning established in 1990 for that subdivision, that zoning still stands, correct?
If it was a PUD, an applicant could come in and try to revive that PUD, but it would need to be, it'd be most certainly a major revision, and so it would be, it'd be a pretty big task. Zoning and use are different, but I think if your question is whether someone could develop according to that PUD, they potentially could, but there would be a lot of work to do to
Make it comply.
make it comply at this point, because the Fairview standards are completely different than they were in 1990, and that project is not, as they say, vested, and wouldn't have any entitlement at this point, so.
Right, that's kind of where I was at. I just wanted the general public to know that the possibility of a large amount of homes with that development, even though it met the modern standards, would still be quite a few homes put in that location. So therefore, I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm just saying that you need to know that the traffic for the infrastructure and all of that to be built based on that 1990 zoning would be probably much greater than what they're asking for with this project. So you need to bear in mind that this project with the racetrack and the gun range and the community village, or whatever they want to call that, would not be as impacting as if they built a large number of homes. But that doesn't say that this project meets the desire of the citizens of Fairview, or does it meet the desire of the community around that property. So I guess our task is now to either approve it with conditions, right?
So there's two things we're going to do. There's a motion to approve, and the resolution was read, so you're going to vote on that up or down. So if you vote to approve, then you'd vote in the affirmative. If you vote to not approve, you'd vote in the negative. And then we're going to separately adopt findings of fact and conclusions of law. And I've been keeping notes, so I can say that, and then one of you can make the motion to adopt those findings of fact and conclusions of law if I've heard you correctly so far. But I would encourage you to go ahead and vote on the motion, and then we're going to take up the task of adopting findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Are there parameters around the conditions we can put on it?
Parameters would be like hours of operation or things of that nature. Again, I don't know how you do that with the information that you currently have. I don't know what they would be. Hours of operation is an example, but I don't know how that would work for a club where there's supposed to be overnight visitors. I guess you could limit the amount of time, limit the hours of the day when the cars are racing or when the shooting range is being used to only weekdays or things of that nature. But again, I think you need in my mind, would need a greater understanding of the project and its impact. And I'm not sure that you have that information. But again, that's something you have to decide.
All right, with that, I make a motion that we vote to approve this resolution. Will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mitchell?
Nay.
Mr. Dwyer?
Nay.
Mr. Batson?
Nay.
Ms. Hill?
Nay.
Mr. Anderson?
Nay.
Okay, the resolution or motion fails 5-0. You've not approved the conditional use permit. So now we need to adopt findings of fact and conclusions of law. If one of you would take some notes so you can make a motion so we adopt the correct findings of fact and conclusions of law. All right, so the motion's going to be, I move, someone needs to write, because I can't do it. I'm going to tell you what it needs to be, but I can't make the motion. So I move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law. Just nod when you're ready for me to continue. I have to play this game with my assistant at work. Okay, 1, applicant has not carried its burden of, yep. Findings of fact and conclusions of law. Okay, 1, applicant has failed to carry its burden of proof. 2, applicant cannot comply with all of Fairview's ordinances, applicable ordinances, I guess. 3, applicant's proposed use does not comply with the city's long-range plan. And 4, applicant has not provided enough information to make a reasonable decision regarding traffic and parking concerns. Now, that's what I heard from all of you. So if I heard wrong, that's just a suggestion, so you can change that language any way you want. But that's what I heard, and I'm just trying to give you enough information so you can make a legal motion and adopt legal findings of fact and conclusions of law, because that's what this board is charged with.
Just number 4, applicant was not provided, or has not provided enough information to establish traffic and parking.
To make a reasonable decision on traffic and parking concerns. So you can make that motion and read it, and then if someone seconds it, and then you can have a discussion and make amendments to that motion if you want to, or scrap it all together and either adopt it or not. But if you don't adopt it, then we're going to have to figure something else out because you're charged with adopting something, okay?
All right, I move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law. 1, applicant has failed to prove burden. Number 2, applicant cannot comply with all applicable ordinances. Number 3, applicant proposed use does not comply with city's long-range plan. And number 4, applicant has not provided enough information to make a reasonable decision about traffic and parking concerns.
And with 1, I think you meant to say burden of proof, correct?
Yes, I did not.
Okay,
Yes.
Rachel, if you could make sure it says has not complied with its burden of proof, or has not
Burden of proof, yeah.
met the burden of proof.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All in favor? Please read the roll. Rachel?
Mr. Batson?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer? Ms. Hill?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. The motion has passed. Okay, so that pretty much concludes it, right?
Someone needs to make a motion to adjourn and second it, and then y'all can.
We can do that.
Motion
be
to
done.
adjourn.
Second.